I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend Christian, 28M, for 2 years. We don't live together yet, but we're very serious and have been talking about moving in together soon. I thought everything was going well until this situation came up, and now I'm questioning everything. I'm a nurse, and I'm scheduled to work a special assignment at a hospital in another state for a week next month. It's great money and good for my career, so I was excited about the opportunity. Christian seemed supportive when I told him about it. Last week, Christian mentioned that his friend Emma, 27F, was going through a tough time and needed a place to stay for a while. He said her roommate situation had become toxic, and she needed to get out quickly, so he had offered to let her stay at his place temporarily. I asked when this would be happening, and Christian said it would probably be sometime next month. I didn't think much of it at first. Christian and Emma have been friends since college, and while I'm not particularly close with her, she's always been friendly when we've hung out in groups. But then yesterday, Christian told me that Emma would be staying at his place for exactly the week that I'm away on my work assignment. He presented this like it was just a coincidence of timing. I asked Christian if he had coordinated the timing on purpose, and he said that Emma had asked if that week would work, and he had said yes because it would be easier for everyone with me being out of town. This immediately raised red flags for me. Why would it be easier for everyone for Emma to stay there while I'm away? What complications would there be if I were in town? When I asked Christian to explain what he meant, he said that Emma was dealing with a lot of stress from her housing situation and her recent breakup and might need to decompress, without worrying about social dynamics. Christian said that Emma was feeling vulnerable and might need to cry or vent about her problems, and that having me around might make her feel like she had to hold it together, instead of processing her emotions. I told Christian that this explanation made me uncomfortable. If Emma needed emotional support, why couldn't she get it while I was around? I've always been supportive of Christian's friends, and I'm not some judgmental person who would make Emma feel bad for being upset. Christian said that I was overthinking the situation and that Emma just felt more comfortable being completely vulnerable around people she'd known for years. He said that even though Emma liked me, we weren't close enough for her to feel comfortable falling apart in front of me. I asked Christian how long Emma would be staying, and he said probably just a week, but that it might take her longer to find a new living situation. I told Christian that I was uncomfortable with him having a female friend stay at his place for an extended period, especially while I was out of town. I said that it felt like he was prioritizing Emma's comfort over my feelings about the situation. Christian got defensive and said that he was just being a good friend, and that he would expect me to do the same thing for one of my friends who was in need. He also said that he was disappointed that I didn't trust him, and that my suspicions were insulting to both him and Emma. I told Christian that this wasn't necessarily about trust. It was about boundaries and how the situation looked. I said that having a female friend stay at his place for a week while his girlfriend was out of town seemed inappropriate, regardless of the innocent reasons behind it. Christian said that he couldn't control how things looked to other people and that he wasn't going to abandon a friend in need just because some people might misinterpret the situation. We ended up having a big argument about it. Christian said that I was being jealous and controlling, and that I was trying to interfere with his friendship. He said that if I really trusted him, I wouldn't have a problem with him helping a friend. I told Christian that my concerns weren't just about trust. They were about respect and boundaries. I said that most people in committed relationships would discuss this kind of situation with their partner before making plans, not just announce it as a done deal. A Christian said that he had told me about Emma needing a place to stay, and that I hadn't objected at the time. He said that I was moving the goalposts by suddenly having a problem with the timing. I pointed out that he hadn't told me the timing would coincide exactly with my work trip, and that the specific timing made the situation feel different. Christian said that he hadn't been trying to hide anything, and that the timing really was just practical. He said that Emma had suggested that week because she knew I would be away, and it seemed like it would be less stressful for everyone. I asked Christian why avoiding stress for Emma was more important than my comfort with the situation, and he said that I was being unreasonable and creating drama over nothing. Since our argument, I've talked to a few friends about the situation, and I'm getting mixed reactions that are making me second-guess myself. My best friend Sarah thinks the whole thing is sketchy, and that Christian should have discussed it with me before making plans. She said that the timing seems too convenient to be innocent, and that Christian's defensiveness is a red flag. But my other friend Mike, who is friends with both me and Christian, says that I'm overreacting and that Christian is just being a good friend. Mike says that if I trust Christian, I shouldn't have a problem with him helping Emma during a difficult time. Christian's friends are apparently all telling him that I'm being crazy and jealous, and that he shouldn't have to choose between helping a friend and keeping his girlfriend happy. Even my own sister said that I might be overthinking this, and that if Christian wanted to cheat on me, he wouldn't need such an elaborate setup to do it. Now I'm wondering if I really am being unreasonable. I know that Christian and Emma have been friends for years, and I've never had reason to suspect anything inappropriate between them. But something about this situation feels off to me. The timing seems too convenient, and Christian's explanation about Emma needing privacy to be emotional doesn't completely make sense to me. I'm also bothered by the fact that Christian made these plans without really consulting me first. Even if everything is completely innocent, I feel like this is the kind of decision that should be made together in a serious relationship. A Christian is now saying that if I'm not comfortable with Emma staying at his place, he'll help her find somewhere else to stay. But he's also making it clear that he thinks I'm being unreasonable and that this situation is revealing trust issues in our relationship. I don't want to be the controlling girlfriend who doesn't let her boyfriend help his friends, but I also don't want to ignore my instincts if something really is off about this situation. Am I being crazy and jealous like everyone says, or are my concerns valid? Should I ask Christian to help Emma find alternative arrangements, or should I trust him and let this play out? Update 4 days later. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. The feedback helped me realize that my concerns were valid and that I needed to have a more direct conversation with Christian about boundaries. I decided to approach the conversation differently this time. Instead of focusing on whether I trusted Christian or whether Emma's situation was legitimate, I focused on what I needed to feel comfortable in our relationship. I told Christian that regardless of his intentions or Emma's needs, I wasn't comfortable with him having a female friend stay at his place for a week while I was out of town. I said that this was a boundary for me, and I needed him to respect it. Christian initially responded the same way he had before, saying that I was being unreasonable and that he was just helping a friend. But I stayed calm and repeated that this was simply a boundary I needed in our relationship. I told Christian that I understood he wanted to help Emma, but that there had to be other solutions that didn't involve her staying at his place while I was away. Christian said that other options would be more expensive for Emma and that he didn't understand why I couldn't just trust him for 1 week. I told Christian that this wasn't about trust, it was about what I was comfortable with in our relationship. I said that even if I trusted him completely, I still wouldn't be comfortable with this arrangement. After about an hour of discussion, Christian finally agreed to help Emma find alternative arrangements. He said that he still thought I was being overly cautious, but that he understood this was important to me. I thought that was the end of it, but then Christian did something that made me realize there were deeper issues with how he viewed our relationship. The next day, Christian told me that he had talked to Emma about finding other accommodations and that she was really disappointed by the change in plans. According to Christian, Emma had asked why I had a problem with her staying at his place, and Christian had told her that I was uncomfortable with the situation and had concerns about boundaries. I was frustrated that Christian had positioned me as the source of the problem instead of taking responsibility for the change in plans himself. I told Christian that he should have framed it as his own decision to maintain appropriate boundaries in our relationship, instead of making me look like the insecure girlfriend who forced his hand. Christian said that he was just being honest about what had happened and that he didn't want to lie to Emma about why the plans had changed. I told Christian that there was a difference between lying and taking ownership. He could have told Emma that upon reflection, he realized the arrangement wasn't appropriate given that he was in a committed relationship. But then Emma contacted me directly, which made things even more complicated. Emma called me and said she wanted to clear the air about the situation. She said she understood that I might feel uncomfortable, but that she wanted to assure me that she had no romantic interest in Christian and would never do anything to harm our relationship. Emma said that she was going through a really difficult time with her living situation and her recent breakup, and that Christian was one of the few people she felt comfortable being completely vulnerable around. She asked if there was any way we could work out a compromise that would allow her to stay at Christian's place while also making me feel comfortable. Emma suggested that maybe I could come over one evening before my trip to hang out with both of them, so I could see that their friendship was completely platonic. The phone call was polite, but something about it bothered me. Emma was essentially asking me to negotiate the boundaries of my own relationship and trying to convince me that my concerns were unfounded. I told Emma that I appreciated her reaching out, but that my decision wasn't based on not trusting her or Christian, it was based on what I was comfortable with in my relationship. Emma said she understood, but then she said something that really rubbed me the wrong way. She said that she hoped I would reconsider, because Christian was such a caring person and she really needed his support right now. The way Emma phrased this made it sound like I was preventing Christian from being a good person by not allowing him to help her in the specific way she wanted. After the call, I told Christian that I was uncomfortable with Emma trying to negotiate with me about the boundaries in our relationship. Christian said that Emma was just trying to be respectful and make sure there were no hard feelings. But I told Christian that the appropriate response from Emma should have been to accept his decision and find alternative arrangements, not to call his girlfriend and try to change her mind. Christian said that maybe Emma was just being thorough because she didn't want to cause problems between us. I told Christian that Emma calling me to advocate for her staying at his place was actually causing more problems, not fewer. Christian seemed genuinely confused about why Emma's call bothered me, which made me realize that he didn't understand the dynamics of what was happening. Update 2 to 1 week later. The situation has continued to develop in ways that have made me more certain that my initial instincts were correct. After my conversation with Christian about Emma's phone call, I thought we had reached an understanding. Christian said he would help Emma find alternative arrangements, and I assumed that would be the end of it. But over the past few days, I've noticed that Christian has been more distant and seemed irritated with me. When I asked him what was wrong, he said that he was frustrated with how the Emma situation had been handled. A Christian said that he felt like I had put him in an impossible position where he had to choose between helping a friend and keeping me happy. I told Christian that he hadn't been forced to choose. He could have helped Emma find alternative housing solutions that didn't involve her staying at his place while I was away. Christian said that other solutions were more complicated and expensive for Emma, and that his offer to let her stay at his place had been the most practical option. I pointed out that Emma's financial convenience wasn't more important than the boundaries in our relationship, but Christian said that I was being inflexible about the situation. Then Christian told me something that really concerned me. He said that Emma had been texting him regularly about how stressed she was about finding a new place to stay, and how disappointed she was that she couldn't count on him for help. According to Christian, Emma had said that she thought our relationship was stronger than to be threatened by her staying at his place for a few days. I told Christian that Emma's comments about our relationship were inappropriate and that she was trying to manipulate the situation by making it seem like my boundaries were a sign of weakness in our relationship. Christian said that Emma was just expressing her opinion and that maybe she had a point about us being secure enough to handle the situation. I was frustrated that Christian was giving weight to Emma's opinion about our relationship boundaries, rather than respecting my feelings as his girlfriend. But then I discovered something that made me realize the situation was even more problematic than I had thought. My friend Jessica, who works at the same company as Emma, mentioned to me that Emma had been talking at work about her housing situation. According to Jessica, Emma had told co-workers that she was staying with a friend during my work trip and seemed excited about having some alone time to figure things out. Jessica said that Emma hadn't mentioned any urgency about her roommate situation and that it sounded more like Emma was planning a voluntary getaway than dealing with a housing emergency. When I asked Jessica for more details, she said that Emma had made comments about looking forward to having someone take care of her for a week and that she deserved to be pampered after her recent breakup. This information completely contradicted the story Christian had told me about Emma needing emergency housing due to a toxic roommate situation. When I confronted Christian with this information, his reaction was very telling. Christian initially said that maybe Jessica had misunderstood what Emma was saying, or that Emma might have been downplaying the urgency of her situation at work. But when I pressed Christian for details about Emma's roommate problems, he became vague and couldn't provide specific information about what made the situation toxic or why Emma needed to leave immediately. Christian said that Emma had described feeling uncomfortable and stressed in her current living situation, but he couldn't explain what specific problems she was having with her roommate. I told Christian that this sounded very different from the emergency housing situation he had originally described to me. Christian admitted that maybe he had misunderstood the urgency of Emma's situation, but said that she was still going through a difficult time and needed support. I told Christian that there was a big difference between Emma needing emotional support after a breakup and Emma needing emergency housing, and that his story had changed significantly. Christian said that the specific details didn't matter because Emma was still his friend and was going through a hard time. But I told Christian that the details did matter because they revealed that Emma's request wasn't about practical need. It was about wanting to spend time with him while I was away. Christian got defensive and said that I was reading too much into the situation and that Emma just valued his friendship and support. I told Christian that if Emma just needed emotional support, she could get that through regular visits or phone calls. She didn't need to stay at his apartment for a week. Christian said that maybe Emma felt like she needed more intensive support during this difficult time in her life. But I pointed out that intensive support from a male friend while his girlfriend was out of town sounded more like an emotional affair than appropriate friendship support. Christian said that I was being paranoid and that Emma's intentions were completely innocent. I told Christian that regardless of Emma's intentions, his willingness to prioritize her wants over my comfort was a problem for our relationship. Final update. 2 weeks later, I wanted to provide a final update because this situation has reached a resolution that, while difficult, has given me a lot of clarity about Christian and our relationship. After my last update, I realized that Christian and I had fundamentally different ideas about appropriate boundaries in relationships, and that this difference wasn't something we could resolve through more conversation. I told Christian that I needed him to make a clear choice. He could either definitively tell Emma that she couldn't stay at his place and maintain appropriate boundaries with her going forward, or he could continue prioritizing Emma's feelings over our relationship, but he couldn't do both. Christian said that he felt like I was forcing him to choose between his friend and his girlfriend, and that healthy relationships should have room for both. I told Christian that I wasn't asking him to end his friendship with Emma. I was asking him to maintain appropriate boundaries that respected our relationship. Christian said that he didn't see why Emma staying at his place for a few days crossed any important boundaries, especially since nothing inappropriate would happen. I realized that Christian genuinely didn't understand why the situation was problematic and that his perspective wasn't going to change. I told Christian that if he couldn't see why having a female friend stay at his place for a week while I was out of town was inappropriate, then we had incompatible views about relationships. Christian said that maybe we did have different views and that he felt like I was too controlling about his friendships. We decided to take a break from our relationship while I was on my work assignment, to give both of us time to think about whether we could resolve our differences. During my week away, Christian texted me a few times with updates about how he was doing, but the conversations felt strained and formal. When I returned from my trip, Christian asked if we could meet to talk about our relationship. He said that he had been thinking about our situation and wanted to work things out. But when we met, Christian told me something that confirmed that my instincts about the situation had been correct. Christian admitted that Emma had ended up staying at his place for part of the week I was away. He said that she had been really struggling and had shown up at his apartment upset, so he had let her stay for 2 nights. Christian presented this as if he'd had no choice but to help Emma in a moment of crisis, but I could tell that he had planned to let her stay all along. I told Christian that his decision to let Emma stay at his place after I had explicitly said I wasn't comfortable with it showed me that he was willing to violate my boundaries when it was convenient for him. Christian said that it had been a different situation because Emma had been genuinely upset and needed immediate support. But I told Christian that Emma being upset didn't change the boundary we had discussed, and that there were other ways he could have supported her without having her stay at his apartment. Christian said that he had been trying to be a good friend, and that he thought I would understand once I knew the full situation. I told Christian that I did understand the full situation. He had chosen to prioritize Emma's emotional needs over my explicitly stated boundaries. Christian said that he was sorry for not being completely honest with me, but that he hoped we could move past this incident and work on our relationship. I told Christian that this wasn't just about one incident. It was about a pattern of him prioritizing Emma's feelings over mine and not respecting the boundaries I needed in our relationship. I also told Christian that his decision to let Emma stay at his place after telling me he wouldn't showed me that he would lie to me when it was convenient, which was a fundamental breach of trust. Christian said that he hadn't intended to lie to me and that the situation had just developed differently than he expected. But I told Christian that intentions didn't matter. The result was that he had done exactly what I had asked him not to do, and then tried to justify it after the fact. We broke up that day. Christian said that he was sad things had ended this way, but that he couldn't be in a relationship where he felt like he had to choose between his girlfriend and his friends. I told Christian that he hadn't been asked to choose between me and his friends. He had been asked to maintain appropriate boundaries that respected our relationship. It's been a week since we broke up, and while I'm sad about the end of our relationship, I'm also relieved that I don't have to constantly worry about whether Christian will respect the boundaries I need to feel secure. I've heard through mutual friends that Emma has continued to be a regular presence in Christian's life since our breakup, which confirms that their relationship was always more important to him than mine. I'm disappointed that Christian couldn't see how his handling of this situation was problematic, but I'm glad I trusted my instincts instead of allowing myself to be convinced that my concerns were unreasonable. For anyone dealing with similar situations, boundaries in relationships aren't about controlling your partner. They're about mutual respect and creating a foundation for trust. If your partner consistently prioritizes other people's feelings over your reasonable boundaries, that's a sign of incompatibility that probably can't be resolved through compromise. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate exactly why. Often, your subconscious is picking up on red flags that your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. I'm moving forward with confidence that I made the right decision, even though it was painful. I'd rather be single than be in a relationship where my boundaries aren't respected.